Hello and welcome. It is All for United. It's a pleasure to have your company once again on this fine Friday evening as we get ourselves ready, gearing up for the last Premier League game of this season. The race has been run. The finish line is in sight. And a bit like Eurovision, we're nowhere near the top lot, but we're in there somewhere, stuck in the middle, hoping that there's going to be some form of good news. And hopefully that good news comes in the form of Brighton and Hove Albion this weekend. We've got ourselves another little crack panel. We do have Dan. He will be on his way. He's just a little bit late, or running a little bit late at the moment, so he will jump on as soon as he can, or so he tells me. So we shall wait and see if that materialises. But if not, fear not at all, for we have two fantastic United fans who will be able to guide you through all the way to Brighton. Just below us, we've got Mr. Matt Morgan. Lovely to have you back, sir. How the devil are you?
Yeah, very, very good. It's glad to be back on again. I can't believe it's the end of the season already. It's come around really, really quick. Last preview of the season. Crazy.
Well, I mean, we've still got the
we've got the cup final, yeah, of course. Yeah, last league game, I should say.
Let's not forget about the cup final. Literally the only bit of joy that's been flying out.
I'm just trying to forget about it for the time being, till the time comes.
But yes, certainly the last league one of the season. And of course, we've got Stu just over here to my left-hand side at the moment. How are you doing, young man? You all right?
Yeah, I'm all right, pal. I'm all right. Had a busy couple of weeks, but we're getting there, mate. So, yeah, looking forward to the end of the season, truth be told. I think I'm quite looking forward to Sunday evening. Whatever happens now, wherever the chips fall, they fall, don't they? And that's it. Stupidly, I did renew my season ticket for next. Although, to be fair, my lad twisted my arm as far as my back as I possibly could get, saying, "Dad, just pay the money. Stop being an idiot. Pay the money." All right, thanks. So, as usual, Baz, next year I doubt I'll be going to many games, as he likes to stand with the TRA. Bless him. Yeah. Whereas I like my seat, as you well know. I like my seat. But yeah, I'm sure we'll do a season review, won't we? I'm sure you've got that in the mix after the FA Cup or before, whichever. But yeah, do you know what? I know you're going to get into it, and I'm sorry to preempt it, and I know you'll get into it about it. You know, we won the other night on Wednesday, and yet still people were fucking on Ten Hag's back. Talk Sport all week. All week they've been at it, haven't they? So disappointing. It just, but it's Manchester United, isn't it? The greatest club on planet Earth.
Well, indeed. You know, hated, adored, but never ignored. That is us. Always in the news. And I'm glad you brought it up, actually, though, Stu, because I did want to have a quick chat with the pair of you, because neither of you were on the review show that we did just 24 hours ago. These things come around quick; they really do high into. How are you feeling about that game? Because I mean, I don't know how you guys felt. Well, that's why I'm asking the question. But I quite liked the game. I thought it had a nice little feel-good factor around it. And considering there were very little on it, really, other than just us finishing a game of football and winning, there wasn't really that much there. There did seem to be quite a nice atmosphere around the place.
There's a difference, isn't there? Last couple of games, there's been a subtle difference. People are trying to attribute it to the Wilcox effect, aren't they? But, you know, I think Ten Hag's looked at it. He's clearly got a stubborn streak embedded in him. I think we spoke about that in the past, don't we, Baz? But, and I hope my good old friend Danica is watching, because I'm about to tell you, Baz, I thought Bruno was sensational on Wednesday evening. And you know me, I'm pretty on the fence with Bruno this season, but I thought he was absolutely sensational, because the way that he controlled the game from what I would class as a passive-aggressive style, he's normally just like the Energizer Bunny, isn't he? But he was more controlled in his discipline, I felt. He really made a difference, and he caused Newcastle in particular a problem, and he allowed Maino to flourish, which Maino hasn't been able to do over the last 4 to 5 weeks. Maino's looked tired, hasn't he? And that's because he's been kind of shrouded with 3 or 4 players all the time. That then leads me on to the one, the only Sofian Amrabat, where I know he's been injured, but where has this Sofian Amrabat been when he was fit? And these are the questions and the conundrums. And if I'm Ten Hag, I'm thinking, what the fuck? I literally am. I'm sitting in my office thinking, what am I going to do? Why is this happening? All of a sudden, what is wrong with you? And, Amrabat, as we all know, the Mbappe clip, and people were comparing his last-ditch challenge is an Mbappe-esque type of challenge. I said pretty much, but he didn't put his head and his chin in the air this time as he ran with his head down. But look, there's an interesting mechanism which either Wilcox is telling Ten Hag to play or Ten Hag has just found. And I'm not quite sure, so I'll be interested to see what Matt's got to say about that, whether he feels it is, something that he's stumbled on. Because I think it has to be a stumble, doesn't it, Baz? Because he could have done this earlier on, or is it a Wilcox thing? So I'm interested in Matt's opinion on that. But look, I was delighted to see Højlund score. I'm not quite sure on the goalkeeper, on Dubravka on that one, but the actual bullishness that we've criticised him for this season in parts was evident, and it was a nice finish. What a strike by Amad Diallo. I thought he made a huge difference in his play and his willingness to take the ball and his willingness to commit defenders. Not so sure on Garnacho at the moment. Again, I'll be interested in Matt's opinion on that. But standout player for me by far was Bruno. There's just whether or not this little injury, this problem he had with his wrist, stoked to flame, whether all this nonsense that we've seen in the press just recently, the last 2 to 3 weeks, Manchester United would sell him, etc., has stoked to flame. Whether he's reading opinion, listening to opinion, whether he listens to us or whoever, a stoked to flame, totally different player. Reminded me of Bruno back in, was it 2020, when he chipped that little dink over for Martial to score. That type of Bruno was evident. Maybe Amrabat coming in has helped him because of the Casemiro issue. Just one quickly before I finish, Baz. I thought Casemiro had a real solid game. Made a couple of errors, but he's nowhere near as bad as he's been just recently. So all in all, I was delighted, and I'm just a bit disappointed. And I know you'll bring it up later, so I'll save it, but I was just a bit disappointed with the aftermath in terms of the way that people read the game.
Okay, we are going to quickly. She's just asked for a question here, Simon has. So, do you feel Ten Hag's stubborn streak is a good or a bad thing?
Well, Simon, as you've probably realised, I am a stubborn fucker anyway. So I like a stubborn streak because it actually suggests there's a willingness to learn to an extent, but there's also an air of arrogance when you're stubborn. And I think arrogance is where you need to be. I'm not saying he's got it right all the time this season, Simon, but I think he's been let down by quite a bit of in fact, a lot of our players. Whereas I think Guardiola, if he was in a similar situation and with your squad, it's just somebody comes out, somebody comes in. We can't do that with our squad at the moment. So I just think, yeah, agreed. Exactly right. Repetition. Yeah, I agree with that. So thank you.
There we go. No worries at all. And then, lovely to see you've done that. It was a brilliant little chat we've had with Brentford women and their captain. So it was a wonderful moment for us to get our first team interview under the radar. It's gone in. So yes, please do. If it's that your sort of thing, then do get yourself over there and have a watch. But if it's not, then just carry on doing what you're doing over here. It's all good. Matt, same for you. Just a quick chat on, I was going to say yesterday's game, but it wasn't. It was yesterday's review. Wednesday's game. How did you feel that went for our swan song at Old Trafford this season?
Pleasantly surprised is probably the best way to describe it. I wasn't actually, I don't want to sound too negative, I wasn't expecting what we saw, to be quite honest. I think after the last few games, you kind of went into this game sort of expecting, because Newcastle are still obviously fighting for Europe. I wasn't quite sure what they were going to produce. I thought Newcastle were quite disappointing, to be honest. I thought the 2 goals they scored was just, again, down to really poor defending errors again, which has been a reoccurring thing last few games. I think overall it was surprising how we set up. Like Stu said, I think personally, I think it may well be coming from above. I'm just surprised if he just stumbled upon it this late in the season. I think like second to last game of the season, it's just, why has it took him so long if he has just come across it? But it was interesting having Bruno as like a false 9 almost. And it worked quite well. Like I say, he brought Højlund on later in the game, brought the usuals on, which again looked really good. He come on, got a goal, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. I was very glad to see Højlund score. He's been very long overdue again. But yeah, Rashford came in, tried getting into the game, didn't do an awful lot. But again, it's one of them. It's game time. He's been out for a few games, so it's getting back into the rhythm. But it's late in the season. We just need people ready for that cup final now, to be honest. Bruno, I thought Bruno was absolutely brilliant. I think Bruno's been, he's been by far the most consistent player of whole season, hasn't he? Let's be honest. But Bruno's Bruno, and I really hope he stays, which I think he will. I don't see Bruno leaving, to be quite honest, after what he said the other night. I think he made it abundantly clear he wanted to stay. And it seems the club also want that as well. But yeah, Amrabat, another one. Pleasantly surprised. Do I think he'll stay after the end of the season? I don't think they'll sign him permanently. I just don't think he's quite shown enough. But other than that, overall, very, very solid. Just defensive errors here and there again. But overall, pleasantly surprised, I'd say. But I was there, it was actually, I think, I picked one of the best games to go to towards the end of the season, because it's probably been the better performances in recent weeks.
No, absolutely. And NC Sun over the last decade, we've been able to get up for the bigger or better teams, regardless of form. A bit like the Scousers in the 90s. Doesn't always happen, but I hope it does on the 25th. You and me and the other 2 here, both. Well, he has arrived. He has turned up finally. So that's about as big of an introduction as you get, I'm afraid, Dan. Hello, how are you? You all right?
I'm no Andrew Wall, apparently.
We've got to keep Andrew all sweet. He sends things over, doesn't he? So, you know.
Fair play. Yeah, I'm good. Running a bit
Trust
late.
me, Dan. I didn't get much of an intro either, pal, so don't worry.
I was just literally doing a TikTok as well, so go and check that out, obviously.
We're starting to sound like Connor.
Tagged All for United in it as well.
Live.
I thought I'll quickly do that before I jump on. So, yeah. Have I missed anything?
No, not really. They've just been running over the Newcastle game, which obviously you've already done. So that's all good. And yes, of course, it does make sense. Absolutely, it was a cracker with no emotional investment in. Of course, you'll enjoy a game like that. Had everything you could want, really. Some great goals and a little bit of ebb and flow. And then, of course, a little bit of jeopardy at the end with Newcastle putting one back and the possibility that United were going to go over on the banana skin. But it didn't happen, which is good for us. So there we go. Well, Dan, you're just in time, really, for us to start chatting about this wonderful game that we've got coming up against Brighton. And I'm just intrigued from all 3 of you, really. So I'm not going to change the question. I'm just going to send it round. And it's the same question for all 3 of you. But I am intrigued as to how you would set it up. I mean, I've put it in the tweet that we put out as to how important the momentum is in this game in terms of, do we want to be going into the cup final off the back of a defeat to Brighton and Hove Albion? But what I would say is, how best are we going to go about that? Is it worth us putting out there a full strength side in order to try and garner that momentum? Do we put some changes in? Maybe put some of the youngsters in, maybe give some of those a chance for a tearful goodbye for the end of the season. What is it that you would be using this game for? Because let's not forget, there is still entry to the prestigious Europa Conference League up for grabs. And we could get that by doing better than Newcastle, basically, which means you've either got to win by a margin of about 12 or 13 goals better, or hope they draw. So what do we reckon, Dan?
I think it's a tough one, this, to be honest. I would be more than convinced that Ten Hag is going to go strong. And then if he's got chance to give some players a goodbye like Varane or Martial or whatever, that he might do that. You know, if I'm not wrong, Newcastle, is it Brentford away they've got? So that's not an easy game. So the way Ten Hag will see it is that strongest 11, because we could still get in Europe, there's a fair chance of that. It might be one of them, as daft as it sounds, that you evaluate the scores at half time. If Newcastle are 2-3 up, then you chuck on Martial, you chuck on Varane, you give a chance for the players to say goodbye to the fans. But there's no doubt in my mind that he is going full strength for that, because he wants Europe. I just think that's where he's at.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I would do the same halftime evaluation of where we are. What I would do slightly differently is put Varane on as skipper. Just to start the game, and if Martial's fit, I would play him. I don't like having Martinez backing and around the squad right now. I would play him in the FA Cup, obviously. But for to do that, then you've got to give him game time. So that's a dangerous conundrum right now. Same with Rashford to an extent. If you're going to play Rashford, you've got to be very, very careful with what you do with him. But look, I didn't mind too much the team that started on Wednesday. I think you both know right now I'm advocating a 3-5-2 system. I think that's our best way of beating City anyway, in my own humble opinion, because I think that would nullify and really suffocate their forward three. What personally he chooses to do with that, I don't know, but he won't do that anyway. So, it's a bit of a moot point. And then if at halftime Newcastle are winning comfortably, then pop on Harry Amos for his debut and get young Wheatley on again, and Kwabala if he's fit, and force and give him a run out, that type of thing. Really, I do advocate that, and rest the players and get them ready for the final. We need everybody to be 100% fit, because Guardiola's special tablets are likely to come out, aren't they? At some point,
Allegedly,
yes, of course, to keep them going for 90 minutes. But just a quick one on Bruno and the end of the season. I don't know whether you're going to pull this up, Barry, so I just thought I'd bring it up. There are times when you're doing a squad rebuild where you have to sacrifice something big, just in case it generates something big to allow you to elaborate your squad choice. And I would just use that as a note of caution. I don't think we will sell him, but I would just use that as a note of caution.
Yeah, I do think he'll go strong. It's Ten Hag. I think that's what he's done pretty much for the whole season. Obviously, from what he's had available, that is. He will want Europe first and foremost. That's obviously, if he doesn't want Europe, then why is he even manager of United? You know what I mean? But ultimately, I think he will go strong. I think he will base it around the cup final. I think he will start integrating players back in that he'll want in the cup final, i.e. Varane. I think he's definite to start in the final alongside Martinez, I'd imagine. Will he start Martinez? I'm not too sure. If I'd start him personally, I think I'd just bring him on again. I don't think he'd. I think it's a bit of a risk playing him a full game, last game of the season with a cup final, literally a week away. I think he will go strong. I think I'm surprised if Rashford starts, to be honest. I think he might give him a bit more game time, let him build on when he came on the other night. But I think other than that, I think Højlund will probably start. I think he'll come back in again. Obviously, Bruno will probably play because it's Bruno. He just plays every game virtually. I think he will go strong, and I think he has to go strong now. You suppose you could argue him rotating, playing some of the kids, but at this point now, I don't see the point. He'll just want to secure Europe, finish as strong as possible, and get the team ready for the cup final, I say.
I just want to throw in as well, I do think that Kobe Manu and Garnacho are both in need of a rest. If you're going to see the best of them in the cup final, they need a rest. They've been overplayed. I always bang on about you playing the youth players, but you have to rest them as well. I think we said last show Garnacho's on 37 starts in a row, and Kobe Manu was on something like 27 in 28. So I do think there is an element of them needing a rest as well before that cup final.
Yeah.
The weekly plea from Dan to rest Garnacho has taken less than 5 minutes for him to get in and ask for today. Speaking of five appears to be the magic number when looking over the games against Brighton, because in the last 5 matches that we've played, we've scored, and I use that term loosely, 2 goals in those 5 games. We have, however, conceded 6, 7, 10 goals. We have conceded. So we're on a 10-2 loss here to Brighton over the last 5 games. And to be fair, one of those goals was an own goal from Alexis McAllister, who's somehow made his way elsewhere. So, look, I suppose the question with this really is, Brighton are one of those teams who are tricky, who was Hannibal indeed, but well done. He was the last person to score, but that was this season. So you're only getting half a point for that one. It's been one of those seasons and one of those fixtures where we're not really getting too much out of it. We're not getting too much in terms of our attacking style of play. Brighton obviously like to sit deep. It makes it difficult for us to break down. Is that how we see this game going this weekend? And if so, what are the tools at our disposal that are going to allow us to be able to get a result against Brighton, being in what appears to be a bit of a bogey fixture at the moment? Danny boy.
I genuinely think De Zerbi's got Ten Hag's goat a little bit, to be honest. He made a good start against us last time we played, and he made a slight tactical tweak, and we didn't seem to be able to cope with it. And then all their attacks literally came down. I think it was the right-hand side, and that was that for literally 90 minutes. And we didn't tactically change. We didn't do anything different. So it'll be interesting to see whether the players can figure this out. I think we need to keep the ball well. That is the most important thing against Brighton. If we can keep the ball well and keep a tight leash on counter-attacks and stuff like that, then we should do well. It's just whether the players can do that. I saw the position of the players for the game against Newcastle, and it was quite a narrow tactic all the way through the pitch. There wasn't a lot of width, and I think maybe that's what they're going to try and do again. They're definitely a bogey team, and they're a very good team. You can't say that you can go to Brighton and you're definitely going to win. Brighton are a bit like us, though, in a way. You don't know which Brighton's going to turn up. Sometimes they turn up and are absolutely class, and then sometimes they turn up and they're lacking a little bit. So it'll be a good game. I think that we should have enough to beat them if we go strong. But again, I suppose it'll come down to which of the two teams show up. Hopefully, we show up and it's a decent game of football, to be honest. I want some fireworks. I want like a 5-4 or something. Just something to end the season with a bang. Something exciting. Well, the Premier League season, anyway.
Stu, for you as well. I mean, Brighton are 10th at the minute. They can't get any higher than 10th. That is their ceiling. They are in the position, and it's theirs to lose. Obviously, Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, and Wolves could all usurp them, so they could end up finishing as low as 13th. That's their area, though. It's a mid-table side, but it's their last game at home. They're going to want to be saying goodbye to their fans and putting on a decent performance ready for next season. So what would be your tactical treats that you would be putting onto a plate for United to get rid of this hoodoo that we've got against Bournemouth? Because we've only played them 32 times. And here we are looking at the last 5 going, God, what's going on?
Yeah. Our short game will be key on Sunday. And providing we can condense their play, I think Barthel's made a very good point. The way they transition, they allow teams onto them, and as soon as they can nab it, they're in, and they exploit the gaps in between our defence and our midfield. That's how they've beaten us in the past. We have to be more considered with the football. So when the ball's coming to you, you have to be considered with what you're going to do with it. So if you're in a situation where you are being closed down, then just pop it off 2, 3, 4 yards and walk into space to receive it. We don't do that, unfortunately. We are a little bit occasionally when KB Maino's not in there. We're a little bit passive with the football, and you can't always be passive. You as I said, you've got to be more considered when you get it. Sometimes just put it out wide, pop it back to the fullbacks, come into the midfield. You know, there are ways of getting up the pitch by going backwards, and we don't actually do that occasionally. When we go backwards, we go all the way back to Onana, and then Onana lays it off to Martinez, who then puts it into Casemiro, blah, blah, blah. There was a situation, me and Jarvis discussed it actually, on, I can't remember which game it was. It escapes me anyway, but Nana had the ball. He dropped it into Casemiro. Casemiro puts it straight back to Onana, out to Dallo, and we move up the wing that way. The interesting thing about that was when Casemiro came in, he left a huge space for Mino. If Onana had just flicked it out to Mino, and it would have been 10 yards up the pitch. And we're not doing that. We're not looking at that. And that's what I mean by being considered, more thoughtful when we're in possession. And we're just not doing that. But having said that, on that particular phase of play, we did actually get out quite comfortable. Although the little pass into Casemiro back to Onana, then out to Dallo, back into Casemiro, into I think it was Amrabat, is dangerous because, you know, somebody like Brighton, and luckily they don't have, I can't remember the Japanese or the Asian. Yeah, him, what a play. He'd be all over us like so. So we don't have that. So I would like to see a more measured and more considered approach. Very, very slow up tackling and bang, hit them hard as we can, speed wise. So that's how I would like to see us do it. Whether we'll do it or not, I don't know. But it's also worth considering as well that we talk about the way that Ten Hag is playing right now. The last time we changed something drastically was when we played City just recently. We got beat 3-1. We absolutely destroyed them in the first half. They hadn't got a clue what to do with us. And then we came out, reverted to type. So we've got to do this for 90 minutes. Whatever we do, we have to do that for 90 minutes. In terms of selection, I wouldn't be surprised if Martinez doesn't start and he brings back Maguire and then rests Martinez for the final. But that's what I would like to see, a more considered, methodical, make sure our short games on point first before we then try to open ourselves.
Absolutely. Matt, I mean, for you, same question, but obviously De Zerbi being the manager of Brighton, he's been the manager for the last 3 games. And in that time, we've drawn 1 and lost 2, conceded 4, scored 1. We have -3 goal difference, which is not just what we are this season. It's that's just the Brighton one. At no win percentage, we have not won a game against De Zerbi at the moment. What needs to change for you in order for that to change this weekend?
I think just keep it simple. I think we need to just cut out the errors. I think errors in this game is going to be play a massive part. I think I seen the other night, even against Newcastle early on, not just picking Casemiro, just him as an example. There was a simple pass he had, and it literally went straight to a Newcastle player. And literally, I think they actually might have created a chance straight from it, and he was in our own half. Yeah, I think keeping it simple, like Stu said, I think possession is going to be key. Keep it simple, move the ball around. Like I say, if we go strong, we should have more than enough to beat Brighton on the day. But again, cutting out these silly little errors will go a long way to getting a result against Brighton. I think that they'll be waiting for us to make the mistakes and then hit us on the break. They'll just sit, wait for us, play it around, because a mistake will happen. Because that's just United's. That's just been this the whole season. I think defensively, I think having played in the right positions may help a bit more. I think having Casemiro at centre back, I think it is hindering him a little bit in the fact that he's not in his comfort zone basically. So I think that's why he's making so many mistakes. So I think having him back in midfield, and maybe if Martinez does start, or I don't know if anyone's back, Lindelof's back in track, I don't know who's actually going to start. But if we do have an actual centre-back pairing and he's back in midfield, I think that will make a difference. I think he does seem to find his range a lot better from there to pick out the passes. But yeah, individual errors are going to be massive in the game on Sunday. Too many mistakes, and it'll definitely cost us 100%.
Well, there you go. Didn't we beat Brighton in the FA Cup semi last season? Well,
the league
made hard work of that.
Yes, but at the end of 90, it was a draw. So
yeah, I can remember. Was it Solly March missed his penalty?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. Yeah. But we're talking league. You're talking league anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I did include the FA Cup one, but that's still a draw after 90 minutes. You can win a game on penalties, but that's not going to happen tomorrow, is it? So, you've still got to try and beat them in the time that's allotted to you.
You never know. We could get a penalty after the 90th minute again.
Well, they managed it.
Was that 2019 or 2020? 2020, wasn't it, that?
I think so, yeah. I can just remember Maguire going absolutely mad.
Bruno popped it away, didn't he? It was amazing, yeah. Oh, 2020 first year of VAR, wasn't it?
It was quite a moment, to be fair. I loved it. But there we are. That's just me. I wanted to... Oh, hello, what's this? I read that it's usually the mid-table teams with nothing to fight for that end up picking up the most points at the end of the season. So it could be a firecracker of a game. Yeah, it could well be. But what I wanted to talk about now was a little bit of what Erik ten Hag has spoken about in his press conference. He's mentioned that Harry Maguire might be available for the cup final, but isn't necessarily ready for the weekend. Luke Shaw isn't looking like it. He says he's got a chance, but it's a small one. He had a little bit of a setback, apparently, so now they've got to see how bad that is. He's been asked why his team have had so many injuries this season, and his response was, I know, but I don't share because it's not important. We can't change things. That's for the future and across the summer, not for now. Dan, do you think that is an acceptable answer based on the fact that we are undoubtedly one of the top three, if not top two teams that have had the level of injuries that we have across this season? Do you think that's an acceptable thing to turn around and say, I know the reason why this has happened, but I'm not telling you right now? Do you think that was the right thing for him to say?
I suppose it depends on the reason. He might be protecting a staff member. There might be a process where maybe they're going to sack somebody in the summer because of the issues that they've had. So it all depends on the reason, really. I think it's a good answer because it keeps everybody guessing and it's not revealed too much. And I genuinely hope that he does know and he's not just saying that. So he might not know himself and he might just be putting we know the problem. We'll sort the problem over the summer. Bit of kid going off. It's an interesting one. That's the first time I've heard that quote, to be honest. So I hope he does know and they do know that they can fix it. But mate, we'll have to see in the summer. There's got to be big changes, though, because this is not acceptable. It can't happen next season. I always refer back to Klopp when Klopp joined Liverpool, and same with Arteta. There was an increase in something in training, and lots of players broke down in the first 6-12-month period because of the increase, like running and stuff like that. So it could be that. It could be the change in the training. But they've definitely got to get a handle on it, whatever it is, because we can't afford this next season. But then just to go slightly off tangent, and maybe Matt and Stu can weigh in, I think some players, unfortunately, are going to have to be looked at this summer. Some of the better players, like Luke Shaw, injury-wise, because we can't go into another season with a left-back that is missing 20-odd games a season. It's too many. And then I would even say that Martinez is one or two injuries away from being a concern as well if he picks up some more, because he's proven quite injury prone at the minute. So hopefully that stops. But yeah, I think there's a conversation to be had about some players that we don't need another Martial and Shaw when we sign players. We don't need another 8-10 years of players struggling. Phil Jones was the same. We need to be a bit more ruthless. If they've not got the injury record, then move them on quicker.
Yeah. Oh, it's an interesting one, that then. I mean, could also be that the problem isn't necessarily with the players, but it's with the sort of the medical side and what's going on there. But like you say, we won't know because he hasn't told us. We'll find out. Dave, I don't know if you've been on the vodka this evening, but the United women beat Chelsea's women. That's how we made it to the FA Cup final.
They did, yeah.
And of course, the men
have they ever beaten them in the league, though?
No. So
we play on Sunday, don't we, Baz? Sunday?
I play tomorrow.
Old Trafford, isn't it? Old Trafford.
Old Trafford, indeed.
Oh,
that's a big one. And the men have beaten Brighton. In fact, we have a nearly 60% win record. So we have beaten them 6 out of every 10 times that we've played them. It's just unfortunate that the last 4 have come as they have. But there we are. All right. You wrote it. Just reading what you write. Clearer next time. What do you reckon about what we were just talking about with the injuries?
So Eric Ten Hag played with his spinning top before he said that answer, because that was a wonderful structured PR quote. However, very, very clever. And somebody in the PR department said, just say this, and it asks loads of questions. But I'm with Dan. I hope that we do know what it is and we pinpointed it and it won't happen again. And I think that's quite clear. What I've been more interested in this week is Mr. Rooney and his conversation and observations about players not wanting to play with injuries. Well, I would like to refer you back to about 12 months ago when me and Mr. Field up there had a similar conversation. I raised it. And Dan kind of agreed with me. We had this conversation. I said that players hide behind injury. I spoke about it in great depth, if you remember. So I would like to send a message to Mr. Rooney. You're a little bit late, pal. A little bit late. The real information come to All for United. No, we did that, didn't we, Dan? If you remember, we had a conversation. I made a point that there are certain players that are quite weak mentally, but look, I cited my own quad injury that I suffered about 6 to 8 years ago, and I still today have mental twinges thinking, oh, I felt something go and I didn't, but today I still feel that. So I can kind of understand players at this point in time, but you know, when you play for a football club, irrespective of how much you're getting paid, you should want to be out there constantly. I do. I can't wait till Sunday when we've got our final game of the season. We're playing Sunday this week. I can't wait for that. I can't wait to play with the lads on a Wednesday and a Friday. You know, I can't wait to get out playing. And I would be delighted to be a Manchester United player and do that. But, you know, Rooney, I'm glad he did mention that. And I hope that some players have looked at this and have heard what he's got to say. Because I think it's really important moving forward. But a very, very much of a PR spin there, Baz, and I thought it was a great piece of journalism from Manchester United, not from the journos.
Yeah, I was a little bit frustrated still with Rooney, to be honest. Like, I know we called it a few thingy. My frustration comes from nobody seems to have picked up on this injury thing where the mentality of the players have changed until it was Maguire, Fernandes and Rashford. And then suddenly it was picked up on, whereas they've missed other players. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that Luke Shaw has probably had setbacks where he's not had setbacks because his injury was so horrific that he's gone, I felt something, I'm a bit nervous because it's mental. It's mentally an issue. When you pull an hamstring, you don't want to run as fast. I think you see that with Varane. Like, Varane's had issues with his legs, and I think when he tries to full sprint, he's just mentally not there because he's worried something's going to go if he really pelts. And then we saw that with Giggs towards the end of his career.
That's right.
He stopped running. He just sort of, I'll drift back into centre midfield, so I haven't got to run as much. I ain't got to put the speed into the wings and stuff like that. So it's definitely mentally in a player's head as well. But yeah, I was quite frustrated with Rooney, to be honest, because he's waited until it was Maguire, Rooney, Fernandes before he's highlighted it.
Yeah.
And he should have done it. It should have been done when these lads were playing and others was injured.
Well, to be fair, though, Rooney's only just got into the punditry, hasn't he? You know, he was a manager before then, and it probably would have been quite unprofessional to come out and do such a thing.
What he did
now that he's working for Sky, it's not the end of the world. He
said something about his own players while he was still at Birmingham, didn't he? He said something along the lines of, these lads don't put practice in at the end of the session, the sports scientists are pulling them off, so they can't practice free kicks. They don't practice finishing.
Wasn't Gary Neville didn't he say something similar a few weeks ago? I think he was speaking on Sky saying that about Ten Hag, saying he can't blame all the injuries for the poor season. And after that interview, I think he done with Ten Hag with Sky, he sort of changed his tune a little bit.
He did.
Sort of like
a conversation off record.
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's
Neville will know, won't he? I'll know exactly what's going on. The interesting one for me has been Mason Mount this year. I've never known a player like, just come in for a game and then get injured again for 6, come in for a game and get injured again for 3, come in again and get injured again. I mean, I've never known anything like it. I really haven't. That to me is weak. That to me is weak. Martial is weak. There are players I believe are weak and could have actually played. If I'm Luke Shaw, and I'll be honest with you, if I'm Luke Shaw, and I know he's going to want to go to the Euros, I know he is, and he's likely to get in Southgate's squad. Is it next week they name the squad? It's got to be close.
Yeah, it must be, because a lot are being named already, aren't they?
Germany named theirs, haven't they? France, Then Luke Shaw, is he wondering and thinking, I don't want to play this season? Is Rooney right about that because I've got the Euros coming? But if I'm Luke Shaw, I'd want to play at Wembley in the FA Cup final against City. I'd be doing everything I could, and if so be it, I can't go to the Euros. So be it.
Can you really see Gareth Southgate choosing Luke Shaw?
Yeah,
I can.
Won't surprise me. He picks Maguire at times when he's never played, so he has his favourites, doesn't he?
I was just about to ask.
Yeah, Maguire's kind of earned his. I think he's earned his spot, Maguire now.
Yeah, Maguire. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll ask you, Barry, because I was going to ask Matt and Stu, but I'll ask you. I was literally just about to ask this question. So, who's better than Luke Shaw at left back that's currently playing that's English? Because there just isn't any. So there's no standout left back that stepped up this season to take his spot.
About being a standout left back. That's about needing somebody who's fit and who's not going to break down. And that's the problem. It's a massive gamble. And England managers for years have done this, where they choose someone who's only just been injured or who's only just back from injury. And it always goes wrong. Always goes wrong. So for me, unless he's had a few matches beforehand, you can't choose someone like, and it doesn't matter who it is, Luke Shaw, Harry Kane, I don't care. If they've been injured to that level where they've not featured for months, I can't pick them. Stupid.
I think Luke Shaw goes, and I think if he can't play the first 2 group matches, I think he goes, which means you've got Chilwell, I'm guessing. But do you know who I would pick? Is it Robertson or Robinson out of Fulham?
Robinson, I think.
Robinson.
I quite like, but he won't get anywhere near the squad, by the way. He won't. But I like him, and I would bring him to Old Trafford. I think he's terrific. So I think what he'll do, Baz, is I think he'll pick Luke Shaw, and he'll have him in the squad. And if he's not fit to play those first games, I think he'll bring him in later in the. That means we're stuck with Chilwell, doesn't it? Surely.
Is
apparently Robinson's a full USA from?
He's a US. I didn't know he was a US. Sorry.
Is Alfie Doherty from Luton English? Their left back, because he's had a good season. He's got quite a few assists.
I don't know enough about Fulham. I didn't realise he was American, but I think he's terrific. I don't remember United. I think he's brilliant.
Indeed. Well, we're just going to take a moment to say hello to Simon. Hello, sir. Good evening to you. First time on the stream. You are welcome. And thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoy it. Please do get involved. That's what it's all about. Matt, I don't think you really had the chance to put your bit across on Ten Hag's little bit of trickery there in the press conference. Are you happy with that? Which, everybody is. I'm quite happy. I'm not. I'm sitting here going, I want to know.
Yeah, it's a bit vague, wasn't it?
Interest in this club. Don't keep secrets from me. Board is meant to be together.
It was a bit vague. Like I say, it's first I've heard of the quote myself, to be fair, but that is a very vague answer. Like Stu and Dan have said, I'm just praying that he does know what the reason is, and he's not just saying it as a way to sort of like pacify whoever asked the question, essentially, which managers are very known to do. I think ultimately, there just needs to be massive changes, whether it's his training methods, whether it's the coaching, the fitness staff, or whether it's a mixture of both. It's abundantly clear there is a lot of problems going on behind the scenes. Which I'm hoping this new structure is going to make a bit of a difference and they do bring in the right people, whether that be new coaching staff, whether Ten Hag remains next season, that's still not been clarified. I think there needs to be a lot of changes. I think it's been an issue for a while now, to be honest. It's one of them. I'm just hoping now we've got the right people in the right place. They do know the right people to bring in and the best way to solve the issue, because we can't afford another season like this.
I would say Ten Hag's under contract, and I don't believe his contract's due to run out until the end of next season. So I know you said there's no clarification there, but I mean, it would be a bit odd if the board came out and said, yeah, Ten Hag's definitely keeping his job next year, because that almost feels like the dreaded vote of confidence. He used to be the Championship manager weeks before he got sacked. So I don't know that he'd want that. But yeah, fair points all around. Another thing that you said, Dan, I'm going to come to you on this one because I feel like this is something that you are going to enjoy. On the competition for places created by the form of Amad Diallo and Sofiane Amrabat. Now, I find that a bit interesting because Amrabat's had one good game and now all of a sudden he's the next, next best.
Two good games.
Maybe. But Ten Hag says they've progressed across the season. They deserved their chance and they took it. That's a problem, which is good. It's what I need and was waiting for all season. It's a luxury problem. You need competition to win games. Now, I would argue that Amad Diallo took that chance the minute he put us through the FA Cup against Liverpool. Do you feel that that's a bit of a cheeky answer from Ten Hag? Because someone like Diallo, for example, should have been walking into this team weeks before, especially with the levels that Anthony was bringing as well. I know that he scored in that game as well, so technically you could argue that it was a toss a coin moment in that respect. But we've seen Anthony over a whole season not really perform to the level that we would have expected him to, whereas Diallo was given an opportunity. He should have been given perhaps a little bit more time to show what he could do as well. So I use the word as nicely as I can, but do you think maybe Ten Hag has been a little bit disingenuous with that particular answer?
Yeah, I find that very frustrating, to be honest, because
I knew you would. That's why I asked you.
Yeah, I'd suggest that Amad in particular. I know he's had injury problems, etc., but there is games that he's completely missed and sat out that he probably should have been involved in, whether it's a sub, whether it's everything else. And we've seen players huff and puff for 90 minutes, and Amad watching on from the sidelines. And that, to me, would apply for several other players as well, where you could possibly argue that just chuck him in, give him a chance, see what happens. Like I say it constantly. You got Højlund running around up top for 85 minutes, 80 minutes, and he's struggling. He's tired. He's a kid still. So chuck Wheatley on and give him a break. Give him a chance. Do you know what I mean? Just do it. Yeah, I find that quite frustrating because, again, I think Amrabat's not really been played in position. He's been played out of position. You could argue that there's times this season where Casemiro could have been dropped from centre midfield for Amrabat because of form. And I've said quite a few times on the show that form should matter. And the only way you build a decent squad with squad harmony is that the players understand that places are up for grabs if the form's there, and it's not about who's the favourite, who's this, who's that, who's the bigger name. It's literally about who's playing the best in that period, and they're the ones that are going to get picked. Klopp has I keep praising Liverpool, and I've got to stop it. Klopp was very good at doing that. Competition for places is always a good thing, and the best player in the best form starts. And Ferguson was really good at doing it as well. It's how you keep your whole squad happy. I nodded to players like Wes Brown and John O'Shea, Nicky Butt, Phil Neville. They're some of the best players that Man United have ever had because they didn't sulk, they didn't moan. Well, they might have, but they didn't do it in public. They kept it between the manager, but they came on and they gave everything every single time. And you're not going to create that within the squad if you don't go, do you know what? I trust you to see out this game. Like we was talking about possibly having two centre-backs on against Brighton. Cam Waller should definitely be starting this game for me. He's been back on the bench for a couple of games. He's a centre-back. We don't need Casemiro at centre back anymore. Either drop him because his form's not been great, leave Amrabat in, just get him out of defence. So yeah, I'm all for a bit more rotation, but that is really cheeky because he's definitely had the chance to do that this season and refused.
Yeah, I thought he had as well. Simon's saying he's been a fan for 50 years, which means he must only be 51 years old. And a win on Sunday, hopefully, will give us European football in my years as a fan, though. This has been the worst season I've witnessed. So damning stuff there. You're quite right. Mark Skinner was given, I can't, do you know what? All my days were merged into one. Did that come out today, Matt? It did, didn't it?
Yes, I think it's this morning.
It feels longer.
Time. Yeah.
Been on Twitter, but my God. But yes, so Mark Skinner's been given a 1-year contract, which is the right thing to do, I think. He's won an FA Cup. And, you know, although I've not been enamoured by what they've done, 1 year under a new structure seems perfectly reasonable for me, because then if he doesn't do well, it's a very, very small layout to get rid of them early. This is the sort of thing we need to do. Take note. It's a ridiculous thing to go out there throwing out a massive 4-year contract on millions and millions and squillions of pounds and then decide you want to get rid of them 3 months later, because then you've got loads of money to pay out. So
I think that's what they might do with Ten Hag. I think they might give him another season. I think they might follow a similar pattern.
This is what I mean. I think he's got the season.
Yeah. Whether that's a sign.
He's got
contract ends at the end of the season. This is a
that's
chance.
what I mean. Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to pose a question to you then, really quick.
Okay.
If we win the FA Cup, do we not think one of the best ways to show the squad who's in charge and back the manager would be to give Ten Hag a new contract?
No, I think he could be quite happy to not have been sacked at all. Louis van Gaal wasn't given the same dignity, was he? He won it, and before the flipping champagne had dried from inside the trophy,
he knew the day before.
45. So I think he just needs to be fully aware that he's got to battle for his job as well. I think, you know, if you're going to do it to the players, you've got to do it to him as well. But what do you boys think down there?
I'm a bit torn with it because in one respect, I think an extension is the right move. But I tend to agree with you as well, Baz. There's no point doing an extension if by 3 months into the new season you're going to sack him, then it's less financial outlay. But my thinking always takes me down to, and you know me, I'm more about player accountability first before manager accountability, because it's a player's responsibility to win football matches, as well as the gaffers, but it's the players on that pitch that have the responsibility. So I think that this group of players needs such a rocket that if Ten Hag was to be fired in the summer, then they've got away with it yet again. And this isn't for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. This is for 5, 6, and 7 years. They're getting away with managers being fired, and they're still there, and they're on this huge salaries, and there's no accountability to the players, and that's my biggest issue. And that's what leads me to suggest that give Ten Hag a contract extension. So kind of with Dan on that one, because I think it put a right rocket up some of the players that may stay. And it will change other players' minds. But from a financial point of view, Baz, I also agree with you. So that's why I'm kind of betwixt and between with what I think is the right move. It's a very, very difficult decision for Ineos. This Mark Skinner thing could well be the label and the benchmark you were talking about, Baz. I think you may well be right with that. That's them saying to Ten Hag, we're not going to extend you. You've got 12 months. That's what we've done with Skinner. Impress me.
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
did you go along with that, Matt?
Yeah, I think I totally agree. I think that is the mindset. I think the Skinner news today is sort of set a precedent now for I think what will happen with Ten Hag. To be honest, I think they'll keep it a level playing field for men and women's team. They've had, to be fair, they both had. Also, women have won the FA Cup, but both had really, really poor league seasons, admittedly. And obviously, Skinner's been given another season with an option, obviously, for a further. I do think they will give both managers another season under the new structure. But like Stu just said, then I think the players are the problem. Ultimately, it's been an ongoing issue under Mourinho, Van Gaal. Even going back as well, just after I think when Moyes was there was the same sort of problems. It's gone on for a number of years now. I think if Ten Hag was to go, I think a number of players need to follow. Otherwise, you're going in the same cycle season after season. A new manager will come in. Two seasons down the line, people will be calling them to be sacked. So yeah, I think he'll be given another season. I think they just need to play a level playing field and give both managers another season under a new structure. Personally,
yeah. The reason I asked was I was just wondering if it would give a kick up to your some of the players that if you extend him, may drag their feet. Like if Sancho sees that Ten Hag signs a 2-year deal, 3-year deal. I think he knows his time at the club's done. And I think that might be the same with some other players. They might think, could I just outlast him for 6 more months? Whereas if you do the extension, they know that that's probably not going to be the case. But I do see the point in terms of it would be cheaper to get rid of him. Or if he's not done well enough come the end of that season, it's completely free to get rid of him.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think it is an interesting one because, I mean, like you say, you don't want it to have that sort of Ranić power imbalance whereby the players are left sitting there thinking, well, he's probably going to go at the end of the season anyway. You know, we don't need that level of tomfoolery happening in the dressing rooms again. So I do understand that, but equally, I think, you know, it's that whole iron fist, and actually it's one of those where if Ineos have got anything about them and they can see players doing that, they should be the first ones out in January. And then they realise that it wasn't the most sensible thing they've done. Sorry, where we ended up? Accrington Stanley, unlucky. Perhaps you should have put a little bit more effort in. So yeah, I think I tend to agree with that. And what I will say to you, Si, here is Tuchel may well be favourite to take over, but it was Southgate last month. So, you know,
he said no to Brian, hasn't he? He said no to Brian.
Apparently, they want a younger manager as well. Apparently, I read some. I don't know how true it is. They want a younger. If they do replace him, they do want a younger manager. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But
so here's the other thing. When you look at the issues that Bayern are having right now, of finding a replacement for Tuchel, and who would have thought Bayern would have this problem where Ranić said no, Nagelsmann said no, Hansi Flick has said no. Thomas, will you stay? No. You know, who'd have thought this? And don't forget, 2 months ago, we were staring down the barrel of Bayern, Barcelona, looking at it. I think if Ancelotti wins the Champions League, he might, you know, who's to say he doesn't retire? Maybe Allegri over at Juventus.
Oh,
did Allegri get sacked today?
He's been sacked today, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I've been working all day.
I can't remember who it is. Is it Motta?
They got Motta?
I think he's favourite to take over, or they've offered him a contract. Yeah, but he was sacked today. The same as there's a rumours apparently Xavi will be sacked as well.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. Yeah, so we're all looking. You know, these top clubs are looking for top managers. I think there's such a small pool of managers. Who would we go for?
There's not a lot out there.
No, there's not many that proved it. I mean, you look at Liverpool; they've gone for the 2-arm bandit, the old slot machine himself.
Yes, the slot machine himself.
Put it like that one.
So I asked a few people the other week. People were saying, "Oh, Ten Hag's got to go." Well, who do you want? Well, you know, what about him? Well, give me a reason for why you want him. And nobody can give me a reason. Nobody could actually give me a cast iron reason as to say. I think the manager who's really got some credibility and won't leave is Inzaghi over at Inter Milan. Simone Inzaghi. He's got a lot of credibility around him, and he won't leave. Liverpool have gone for the one-on bandit. That's brilliant for him. You know. Is there a potential Ten Hagism, you know, with him? I hear Xavi is likely to go. I didn't know Allegri had been sacked today. I thought he was going to leave anyway at the end of the season. I figured Allegri would go anyway. And then Alonso, you know, people were touting Alonso around, but we said on this show again that he should stay put for that season, get into the Champions League and prove it wasn't just a fluke. What's happened this season. So interesting, really. So potentially.
Do you know we would smash it at Bayern as well?
Harry Kane.
Solskjaer.
Oh, here he goes again.
I'm telling you, if Solskjaer.
Oh no, I think it'd be a good move for him. Yeah,
he would absolutely smash it at Bayern because the pressure's off. They're one of the better teams in the league, and they've got players that can play that brand of football as well.
Can you imagine it?
I don't think the Munich fans would like him.
That's what I mean. That whole story of him being the guy that scored the goal. Yeah.
But
then he comes back to save them.
The bigger point about Munich is in the last 10 years, and they've changed managers, they've always had somebody ready to go. They've not got anybody ready to go. Do you not think that's fascinating? I do, personally.
There's definitely something going off the pitch that we don't see.
Right. Yeah, quite
something
right.
behind the scene that's wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's fascinating. And the other fascinating thing about it is Pochettino could actually end up with Chelsea 5th. Potentially, they could end up 5th. Look where they were.
That's the thing I'm most annoyed about this season. That Chelsea, they are going to finish higher than us. It's very frustrating. But there we go.
Football fascinating.
A few weeks back, and now the yoke's on me. But there we go. Simon's saying that we need to focus on more than just one specific player over a transfer window. But an interesting shout from Bart Simon about Thomas Frank. To be fair, it's a reasonable job, but you'll get the same people coming out going, "Oh, he's just a PE teacher. What's he won?" And therein will lie your drama. But that's probably the best shout that I have seen.
Where it fitted Bayern like a glove. Thomas Frank.
Right, let's do some scores, shall we, boys? Because I've got one more question, but it's got nothing to do with Brighton. So let's throw it around there. Matt, what do you think is going to be the result in our final game of the Premier League season?
Hopefully they can end off on a high. I think they need some sort of momentum going into the cup final. I think that's going to be on the mind, in the back of their heads. I think going into this game a little bit. I'm personally going to go 2-1 to us. I think we will actually. I think hopefully they'll build on the game the other day, and I think we will. We will come back with the 3 points, end the season off, and secure European football for next season, in whichever form that may be, but some sort of European football.
Fair enough.
Well, I was just trying to put some more. So I did a poll for Thomas Frank.
About Thomas Frank,
to Man United, and I was trying to put it up, but it won't go in the comments section properly. But it was a 75.8% no on Thomas Frank for Man United.
But why? What's the reason for them saying?
I'll be honest, Benny, when I asked that question, Benny put seriously, and then Louis Van Gaal looking not happy. I don't think he was impressed with the question. I don't know why, but yeah, it was a resounding no.
But this is the thing. Sorry, Barry, I don't want to go off.
You go for it, mate.
I think this is the thing. We were talking about Frankie de Jong, weren't we, 2 seasons ago? We've got to have Frankie de Jong, and I pushed back on it. I couldn't quite see it. Great player, but I couldn't quite see it. And we chased him. It's exactly what Simon's discussing here. The fact that it was never going to come to us, ever. People were saying all these IDKs, he's close to coming, he's close. If Manchester United wanted him that bad, they would have paid his 15 million quid that Barcelona owed him and said to Barcelona, we'll pay you 15 million less. It's a fucking easy deal to do. I don't care what anyone says. It's just basic economics. Nobody was that serious about doing that particular deal. This is why I said, and I think Simon's kind of alluding to it. This is why I said that sometimes you've got to be really, really ruthless and take pain when you're building a squad and look at the value you have within the incumbents. And if Bruno, if Saudi Arabia came in and offered us 120 for Bruno, which isn't beyond anything, you should take it because that allows you to rebuild that squad. Now, many fans would say, "God, we can't get rid of Bruno. I agreed, but there are elements to squad building that you sometimes have to take into consideration. So, sorry, I just thought I'd make that point. My score prediction, by the way, Baz, is you're going to love this. Absolutely love it. We are going to beat Brighton, and I jest you not, 4-0 on Sunday.
Nice. That's time we know 4-0 against Brighton,
and we are going to beat them because I don't think they're going to be that bothered. Quite frankly, I think they'll play a bit of a because, as you quite rightly said, Baz, whether they win or lose, it's for the fans only. It's an irrelevance on their monetary income at the end of the season. and I think they'll play some kids. I really do.
Yeah,
And
as you decided to go for that, can you tell me the last time that Man United beat Brighton 4-0?
That would have been 1983.
Would be
Big on,
yeah,
yes, and that would have been the Wilkins curler, wouldn't it?
Was indeed. It was the FA Cup final.
Yeah, Gary Bailey saved us in the 90th minute or the 89th minute, didn't he?
Indeed.
Yes. But I think we'll beat them 4-0. I really do. And you're absolutely right, by the way. And so's Matt. You can't lose on Sunday. If we've got any kind of want to win against City, we have to beat Brighton. We've got to beat them well.
There you go. Might well be. Simon's put this up for the second time. We're not going to go round on it. But we've said many, many times on this channel, he may not be full-on captain material, but the players that currently play for Manchester United, there is none better. He is the best in what we currently have on the pitch. Dan, your prediction, sir?
I don't know what to do here because
you know what to do. Do the complete opposite of what you think it's. Well, not what you think it's going to be. Just do what you did before.
Come on.
This is what I mean. So I'm going to say we're going to lose 2-1. And then hopefully this jinx of me saying we're going to lose and then we go on and win carries on. So, yeah, I want to say 2-1 to Brighton.
You understand, of course, if we do lose 2-1 now, that's it. And you can't.
Then I'm not coming on the show on Sunday.
Exactly.
Well, you won't be allowed on the show on Sunday.
Not for play silly buggers. That's not happening. Right, boys. Brilliant. Good stuff. Well done. That's the previewy section. But there was something else that's obviously been going around and doing the rounds over the last few days. Obviously, the news has come out that next month in June, there is going to be a Premier League meeting, shareholders meeting, where they're going to have a chat about everybody's favourite technological advancement, VAR, which we all know stands for very accurate refereeing. Now, Ten Hag's had his say, says, I don't think there's a way back. In principle, it makes football more fair, but there are some problems. We have to find the solution to these problems and make improvements. So in no more than 2 minutes, your rough thoughts on, I don't want to go down the road of, do you want it to stay or not? Because I think we've all sort of had our shouts on VAR. But do you think there is actually a viable thing that, having spent that much money on VAR and implement it and doing all of that, can you really see? I think it's 14 that's required in order to 2/3 to be able to get it across the line. Can you see more than 7 people saying, no, we don't want to scrap it?
I'll start if you don't mind, and I'll be very, very quick. Barry's right about economically. Football is dumb at the best of times when it comes to money, but they're not that stupid. So that's the first thing. The second thing is there'll be a group of 8 teams. If 8th place gets us into the Conference League, I know it's not 100% confirmed either way, or we get through via the FA Cup, and it'll be 7 teams. Those 7 teams going into Europe will be going into battle with VAR in Europe. Okay. Now, people are forgetting that, and the Premier League are forgetting that. Wolves, the chances of them getting into Europe are slim, unless they win it through a cup competition. But VAR in Europe is dealt with differently to it is in the Premier League, and everybody looks at the Premier League as the focal point of football. We cannot be seen as the focal point of football for VAR. Do I like it? No. Do I think it's a fairer system? I do. I really do, because it takes away that, not the jeopardy, because we all love jeopardy, don't we, in football? That's what gets us off our seat. That's what gets us excited. That's what gets your heart racing. But if you're going to bring in AI for offsides, for the linesmen, why are you scrapping VAR? That's my only question. But I do think you also need to take into account the top 7 teams that will go into Europe will have to play in Europe with VAR. And what do we do with the FA Cup? Do you take VAR out completely? Because they did say, didn't they, next year all teams, all rounds of the FA Cup will have to be VAR rather than some with VAR, some without. But that's my thinking. If you're going to bring in AI, I don't see. And goal line technology, by the way, you're keeping all of that while you're getting rid of VAR. Get it done properly. Just fix it.
Exactly. Just use it properly. That's what it's there for. I mean, let's be honest, Matt. VAR at the moment, it's one of those. It's a bit like using a cheese grater for a spoon. Is kind of what they're doing for it at the moment. But if you were to actually grate cheese with it, it would be amazing. Dan's loving it tonight. He's like, oh, I've done work and now I've got loads of Barry Dad jokes. What's going on? Matt, what do you reckon? VAR, will they get rid of it or will they do, because let's be fair, goal line technology has been superb. I think it only failed once in the entirety of the time that it's been there.
It did, didn't it? Villa.
Just one.
Yes. Villa goal, wasn't it? I've forgotten about it.
I apologise. I went, do you know what? It's worked brilliantly. But do you know what? Across the many times it's been used, one mistake. I mean, everyone's allowed one, surely. Do you think, Matt, that they will keep it and actually do something better with it in terms of whether that be how things are reviewed or whether it be changing the rules so that they are less subjective?
Yeah, I'd be surprised if they got rid of it purely because of like say the amount of money they've ploughed into it. I think it is a fairer system. I think it's just the way they implement it. And again, I think the main issue is you could look at is it the people that are operating the system that don't necessarily know what they're doing, because each week there's too many inconsistencies. It's like one week City could get a goal that's should have been disallowed. We could get a very similar situation, and it gets disallowed. So I can see from both sides of the argument. It is a fairer system if you look at it, but I think it's more if it's taking the emotion out of football. I feel a little bit because you feel like you can't always necessarily celebrate like you normally would do before VAR came in. Fans will celebrate regardless.
I'm going to butt in, and I very rarely do this, Matt. Sorry, but I want to kind of throw back on this emotion one because everybody tells me that, and I don't always feel it. Like you cheer a goal. Is there any difference cheering a goal and having the linesman put his flag up and go, that's offside? And then you go back to the pub, watch it on Match of the Day and go, what? That was never offside. He was miles on. And then you all sit there and whinge about it. So either way, there's going to be that. I find with the emotion side of it, you go for it, then you see VAR. Actually, I find it takes you on a veritable roller coaster because you're sitting there and you're like, oh, actually, this could be offside. And then you're like, is it? Is it not? Is it? Then it's given or it's not given. And if it is given, I cheer. And if it isn't given, you're like, oh. So I think it's just a change of emotions. I just want to ask you with that. Is it, say it's taking the emotion out, do you mean really it's just changing your emotion and the relationship that you have with football and goals, and that's what you're not comfortable with? Or do you really mean that United are scoring and you're just sitting there waiting? No, I think where are you going with that?
Yeah, no, I think it's more than not knowing, especially more like at Old Trafford. Obviously, not every stadium's got screens. I think that needs to be something that does need to be looked at. Obviously, Old Trafford, the way it is, I don't know if they can actually facilitate a screen, but I think it's the not knowing. I think there was talks of like maybe referees having some sort of like audio speaking over the tannoy system, PA system in the stadiums to explain the decisions. Whether that'll actually come into fruition, I don't know. But yeah, referees just they seem to hide behind it. I think that's the biggest problem.
That is the biggest problem. They are hiding behind it.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
One other thing they could do, fella, is there is a time limit. You've either got 30 seconds or a minute. And if you don't get it sorted by the minute, the on-field decision stands.
Yeah, it takes far too long. It's taking far too long.
I think in American football, when the ref is on the mic saying blah, 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 it's stop, start. American football is. It wouldn't work, unfortunately, in the Premier League with football. Sorry.
American football is stop, start and has all the interviews, has all the intervals as well. So, they can just go, we'll watch that on the video. Here's a thing.
Exactly.
Right, you're having adverts partway through a game on TV, honestly. That's what it'll come to. Ad breaks, literally.
It better
Say that
not,
one.
because they're taking the mickey slightly.
Cheerleaders out there for us. That'll be all right.
I've got to say, Simon, I don't think it will be gone. That's my personal thoughts. I don't think it will. Just to throw back on this before we get Dan's view on this as well. Not less selective, less subjective. So what I mean by that is people are talking about handball and nobody knows what handball is anymore. If it hits your hand, people are making that's a subjective decision. You know, on 1 minute the hand's out there, it hits the look at the United one. You know, FA Cup, we have the goal. The penalty given against Wan-Bissaka for a handball. And then the next week, we have the exact same thing happen in the opposition box for us, and it's not given. That's subjective. And that's what people are wound up about. Surely that's where it gets frustrating, is when you go, but you literally gave that against us last week in exactly the same position in exactly the same way, and this week you didn't. So what I mean by changing it and making it more less subjective is, did it hit your hand? Yes, it did. Well, then that's handball. Yeah. And people keep on saying, well, people will try and kick the ball up to it on the hand. Well, then move your hand. Like, that's kind of how it works. You know, it's like saying, oh, well, if we allow goals that go in the top corner, then we're going to allow goals and everyone's going to try and kick for the top corner. Well, then grow. Use bigger goalkeepers. Think of ways to cover those areas. It's up to you to find ways to defend against it. That's how games should be. And then that way, the question then becomes, did it hit the hand? And at that point, VAR look at it and go, did it hit the hand? And if it did, well, then it has. Instead, you've then got to start trying to measure intent. You're trying to measure what people are doing. You can't measure intent. You're not inside their heads. How do you know that somebody genuinely tried to hit the ball with their hands, or, you know, that they weren't thinking that they could hit it and catch it slightly? So
I had a bit of an excuse on the radio the other day, and it tickled me really. And I'm sure that Simon will appreciate this, because me and Simon have been watching football for the same amount of years. You know, I'm 54, so I've been following United since I was 4. You know, so that is, and offside has been done with feet, hasn't it, Barry? You'll know this, for years.
Yeah.
And it's like somebody was saying, well, what if you've got a size 12 foot and your defender you're against has got a size 6 foot? Well, it's tough, isn't it? You know, at the end of the day, he's offside, isn't he, with his size 12? And that's just the way it goes. And they were saying about the lines being drawn. Well, it's not his fault he's got a size 12 foot, isn't it? Well, it's been like that for years. It's been offside. That's the stupidity, I think, sometimes, of the way that people are viewing the lines on VAR.
And again, it feels like we're having a bit of a fight here about time, but I disagree. It's not about that. Things like handball, fouls are always going to be subjective. Did they get the ball? You know, all of that, you can't take that out of the game. But things like a handball, which is what take a look at, the game we just had against Newcastle with Anthony Gordon and the way he went down. There's a whole load of subjectiveness there. You know, was there a foul beforehand? Did Amrabat put his studs down the back of Gordon's leg? Well, yes, he did. And then you've got to decide effectively the intent on that. Personally, I thought it was a penalty to a degree, but at the same time, last night, as I said, equally, but by the letter of the law, probably is a penalty. But personally, I wouldn't like to see that given, because I just feel like he was just running across the back of him and their legs just caught. There's no malice, no intent. That's where you then have to be. But you can't have that level of subjectiveness. You've got to have, this is the rule, because otherwise that's when you have your problems. So you're arguing that the officials need to be less qualified. I'm arguing that you need to understand the emotion of a football game, how it works, and also the mechanics of running, because that's all that's happened. He's not tried to hit him. He's not tried to grab him, but he has fouled him. So technically it was a penalty, but there was nothing there that was, out of the ordinary or unexpected. He's just running away from him and he's caught his foot. Has he impeded his run? He absolutely has. Casemiro with a great challenge. For me, in that, it's about the referee looking at their decision again. And we've spoken about this before, potentially having challenges and that sort of thing, so that the ref has the opportunity to use the technology to go, hang on a second, let me just check that again. No, I agree, I made the right call. Or, do you know what, actually, I haven't quite seen that. Because we've all done it. We all sit there and watch the telly. How many times do you sit there and go, that's a penalty, ref, oh my God, that's a foul. And then you watch the replay and you go, actually, penalty, I think you touched And we all sit there and do it. So why can't the refs? They're human just like us. Dan, what do you reckon?
I don't think they'll get rid of it. I think they'll keep it. I don't see any scenario where they get enough votes to get rid of it. My only suggestion for once the automated offsides come in, I think that will speed things up, which will limit VAR a little bit. I would like to see it used in less subjective situations. So it should be for stuff like spotting players, punching players, or double footing them, or stuff that you can't really argue against. And then even if you do want to look at the subjective stuff of it, like Diego Jota penalty versus Newcastle.
That's more low, wasn't it? I mean,
now, yeah, for me, that's a dive. He's took 4 steps, he's fell over. Well, no, I might be wrong, but the referee never went to look at the monitor. He was just told it was a penalty. I don't think people should be chirping in the referee's ear. I think that referee should just go and have a look at the monitor. You can have a look at it again. We're not going to say anything to you. You can decide in your head what you saw. Does that match what you saw? If yes, you keep your decision. If no, you're allowed to change it. What I don't like is listening to all these people saying, well, I think that he did this and I think that he did that. Because some of these guys ain't got a clue about football. That Wolves one, the Man City one where Haaland got the penalty, how they think that's a penalty is beyond me. And they've apologised again and said, no, it shouldn't have been a penalty. But it's because he had someone in his ear chirping. I think that could be a penalty. You need to go and look because of X, Y, and Z. How about you shut up? I'm the referee on the day. I will go and have a look myself with no one chatting, and then I'll make the decision. And I'll be a lot happier with that because at least you're getting that referee's subjective opinion, not 4 referees' subjective opinion, all arguing against each other. So you've got one man ref in the game, not 4. So I can't see it going anywhere, but that is how I would move forward.
What I would do, Dan, is, and I agree with you on that, I think go to the monitor, and they do that, don't they, overseas. But the ref blows the whistle. He then goes to VAR. I've blown the whistle. This is what I've seen. Can you check what I've seen? And then that's it. That's it. And one ref comes in and says, no, you're right, bang, that's it. And you can do that in 30 seconds.
Yeah, because I think this is what happened yesterday with it. The Casemiro one is the prime example, the penalty. I think the referee and what he's seen is Casemiro come round and kick the ball away.
Yes.
What he hasn't seen is Amrabat catch his ankle. Yes. So he should have said to the VAR, I've seen Casemiro win the ball. And the VAR should have said, we've seen something different. We're not going to say, just go over to the monitor. We'll show you some pictures. Tell us what you think. Now, again, I don't know whether that's a penalty or not. You can argue it's subjective, 50-50.
I don't think it was.
At least it's but at least it's the referee on the day's decision and not some guy in a completely different place that, again, genuinely don't understand the rules. Just a quick congratulations to Southampton. They are in the playoff final against Leeds.
Oh, they got through today?
They've just won 3-1.
Have they?
Okay. I think we're all going to be Southampton fans.
Obviously.
In a week's
time. Love to see Southampton back in. Love it.
Don't mind a bit of Southampton to be fair. And NT, yes, you did explain yourself fine on this one. He's put offsides. Would it not be better if no part of the attacking player's body that they're allowed to play the ball with was in line with the defending player rather than such small margins? The irony of that, NT, is that I think that is generally what they tend to look for anyway. I don't recall anyone being offside because a hand, for example, was further forward than somebody else. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
It's been done before. Yeah.
Oh, has it? There we go. It's the problem.
It's the arm of the defenders. Again, this is what they were talking about, size feet. If it goes like that for whatever reason, then you're offside because you're effectively in front of defender. It's nuts, I know, but anyway.
This is where hopefully the AI bit will help and it will get it done quicker. Because I do agree with part of what Simon's been saying. He's again thrown it out a few times. Talking about we wasted enough time with VAR, but that wasn't quite the one he wanted. It was this one. If we're leading after 90 minutes, the amount of time wasted by VAR gives the opponents the score again. That's why we seem to bottle matches. I think you're being too kind. We seem to bottle matches because people switch off before the end of 90 minutes, or for some inexplicable reason, we give away a penalty because we panic. And that is the best I can go. And again, legally, that's what I mean. of course, legally. But this is half of the drama. One last thing that I wanted to bring up that was mentioned earlier on in the show from bath time. It hasn't been mentioned, but what do we think of Ten Hag not mentioning the girls' FA Cup win in his speech? Now, I don't know if it was mentioned in the programme notes. I do know that the picture of the Women's FA Cup was put onto the honours on the back of the team sheets that are given out at the men's games. So that was quite something. But I did think it was interesting because I know that had it been me stood there trying to give that rousing speech in front of the entirety of Old Trafford, I would have mentioned the fact that the girls have already shown us the way by going off to win their first FA Cup final, and now we need to take that as inspiration. I'd have also gone so far as to say we've seen the under-18s win the treble, who are here today as well. The rest of the club is delivering trophies, and it's these boys' turn to go out there and try and deliver trophies for this great club as well. And I think if it had done that, yeah, granted, it puts a bit of pressure on, but I think these boys need that little bit of pressure. I'm just going to leave that there. It's up to you if you want to say anything about it or not. And if not, we will close the show. So over to you, boys. If there's anything you want to mention about that, or if it doesn't really float your boat, then...
All I will say, it probably would have set an example to the men's team. Like I say, we've said on the last few shows how well as a club, as a whole, have done this season. Women's team, academies teams, all the silverware they've won. It probably would have been the right thing to do for him to mention it, even slightly. But there was, it's probably a minor consolation, but there was a tweet that I think United put out earlier on. I don't know if it was like an interview he was doing with MUTV or the United channel, of him telling people to obviously come down to Old Trafford tomorrow and get behind the women's team to celebrate with them. So whether we count that as a consolation, just not mentioning it, I don't know. But if it was me, I would have mentioned it, and like I say, mention the academy teams as well, give them a bit of a shout out as well.
I think Andy's. Sorry, Dan.
No, go Stu.
I'd be very brief. I think Andy's right, but I also think, I think he looked mega nervous. And I think he was desperate to get out what he wanted to say, and I think it slipped his mind. Actually, I don't think he meant any disrespect.
I agree with you. I mean, I've seen on a lot of places now people taking the mickey out of the way which Ten Hag speaks.
So, yeah.
Speaking about how this slot, the old two-arm bandit, has got the ability to speak proper English and very, very well, whereas Ten Hag hasn't. And I think, he'll have seen that. Somebody somewhere would have brought that to his attention or would have noticed it somewhere. I do agree with you. I think people are a little bit out of order, really. This is a guy that's in football. He doesn't necessarily have the capacity or the willpower even to discuss these things in front of 70,000 people and millions watching at the world at home. Not everybody can. Even me. I mean, I'm sat here in front of 13 people at this moment, and however many of you have decided to switch on, and it can be a nerve-wracking experience. You multiply that by the number of thousands they've got. Crazy. So, yeah, maybe it did slip the mind. Go on, Dan, finish us off. Take us home, boy.
I don't overly have a problem with it, to be honest. He's obviously addressing the Old Trafford crowd at the time, and he's talking about the men's FA Cup final, etc. I would expect the focus to be on the FA Cup final, but this is the exact reason that we should be having an award ceremony, and this is where the lads should be not tipping the hat to the women in the under-18s and in the right circumstances that they deserve. And this is where they should be taking the inspiration from. Ten Hag's obviously, I wouldn't expect Skinner to be talking about the Man United's men's team before the FA Cup final of the women's FA Cup final, if that makes sense. He's got his own stuff he needs to concentrate on. But I still think the club has made a massive mistake by not having the award ceremony for it, to be able to celebrate that and make all the men's footballers go and tip their hat to the women and the young lads as well. That's the setting it should have been done in. And I'm so baffled as to why I've read this morning that it could be about money, which is ridiculous. But that's upset me more than him not mentioning it. It's the fact that we've cancelled this award ceremony where they deserve to get the recognition from everybody at the club. It's really frustrating they've done that.
Apparently, in place of it, though, they've actually, I think it was later on this evening, that they're actually, the women's awards anyway, more specifically, they're actually doing it before the game tomorrow. They're actually giving the player of the season, golden season awards, so they're doing it in front of the
I wonder if they'll bring out the 18s as well. What I was going to say. I wonder if they'll bring out the under 18s.
I know all the women's teams. I think all theirs. I think they're parading theirs. I think
it's not out,
half time, but
yeah, the under 18s are doing theirs at half time. Wondering,
yeah.
So sell out, isn't it, tomorrow at Old Trafford? Well, sell out for whatever. They've sold all the tickets, haven't they? I think.
I read it's over 30,000. Apparently, someone said earlier on.
That's huge. We can stop Chelsea. It was a bit of a bad day for us, isn't it, tomorrow for the women? Because if we beat Chelsea, City win.
Could be a weird day, isn't it?
Yeah, but we've got the potential of sending Emma Hayes packing to America with 0 trophies, haven't we?
Absolutely nothing. And believe you me when I tell you that is exactly what we'll all be sitting there watching it for. Box records, we're raising money to buy a new roof. Maybe that's a possibility. No, you can't have your lamb shanks, everyone, because you're going to need to fill in that little waterfall back there. And of course, bath time. Who could ever forget LVG getting hammered and singing?
Oh God, yeah.
What a guy he is. What a guy he is. And yes, it was crazy that the girls won an FA Cup. The young lads are trebling because of the men. They don't get a joint awards dinner as a club. I think that's exactly what the men need. I think if they come home without an FA Cup, they need to see the rest.
To be fair, it's not on the men. It's not on the men football team. This is an Ineos decision. And it's a poor one. Yeah.
I'm saying, I'm not blaming the blokes. I'm saying it's there, but they need to see this. They need to realise that.
I think it would have been perfect because to sit there and see other people getting awarded because they've won a trophy and getting praised for that. They should be able to take something from that. But again, we've got Man City in the FA Cup final. If that's not enough to get you up for it, then I'm not sure if they ever will get up for it.
An award show during your season because I mean, what would the award have been? God, that would have just been a nightmare.
Honesty. You would never get an award for honesty. You are right.
For it. Yeah.
If you can't pull on that red shirt at Wembley and go out there and do everything you can to win that game of football, then
Simon ends us off here. We've enjoyed my first time on the stream. It's been very informal. I look forward to the next one. And you've enjoyed having you on. Lovely to get new people in the stream. And of course, if you are new around here, please do like and subscribe. We very much appreciate that. We're only close to 7,500. Dan, what's going on there?
Yes, we are actually. It's gone up this week by 10.
Excellent. What do we need? It's like comic relief again.
So we need 168.
That's quite a lot, Dan.
No, I'm confident. We're going to put in the work.
Do you want 168 by when?
I said the end of the FA Cup final.
So in a week's time.
But once we've won it, they're going to come flocking, mate.
End of December, 10,000 subs. That's pretty exciting. 10,000 subs in December.
But yes, it's been an absolute pleasure. So, Matt, thank you very much for joining us. Stu, pleasure as always to have you on the stream.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it tonight.
Well done, Dan. Thank you, everybody in the chat. You've been superb as ever.
Well done, for what's he done?
Who?
It's because I didn't get an intro, Stu.
Oh, was it because you didn't get an intro? Okay,
yeah,
So you just can't win, can you, Matt?
Big thanks to our host, Barry. There you go. Big thanks to Bazza for hosting. There you go, mate.
Never mind. There we go. A pleasure. Nice one, everyone. We will be back Sunday evening to have a little chat about the final day of the season, and we'll talk about where the trophies have landed and what's going on. It'll be fun. See you Sunday. Take care, everybody.